Okay, well, welcome back to the Superlite coupe build. In this video, we are going to finish the modification to the seats and mock up some brackets so that we sort of finalize how these seats are going to be fit into the car. And we left off last time. I just have these seats just sitting in the car. We removed the sides of the seats. We fiberglassed in these sections, and I really like the way it came out. So anyway, let's sort of segue over to the work table. And I've sort of mocked up out of poster board the first version of the seat brackets. So the next step really is I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to make this out of plywood. And then you'll see how I'm going to locate where the holes need to be on the seat, and then I'll need to do some fiberglass and insert, put a threaded insert into the seat to attach the side brackets. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover in this build, so stay tuned. Okay, well, I mocked those brackets up out of plywood, and it's sort of hard to see. They're so deep in the tub here. But anyway, I now have clearance between the bracket and the side impact bar, so that's one of the goals for sure. The other goal, and I'll grab my trusty pointer here, by moving the seat mounting point lower, I now have all this room here to position the seat belt. So that is another key thing. I'll probably anchor the belt on the side impact bar and run it here, and it'll be right across the hip joint, so it really will wind up being where it needs to be. The trick or the challenge here is, I need to mount threaded inserts and I need to build up the fiberglass on the seats. So I'm going to need to be able to make that look good and line up. So that's really the whole challenge of this video. So stay tuned and we'll see how we progress. Okay, well, here's the next step here. I basically drilled some holes in these brackets. I threaded them in. These are M8 bolts. And the idea here is to eventually figure out where I'm going to locate the threaded inserts in the fiberglass seat, so I can bolt this to the bracket. This gives me a sense for what it's going to look like. Now I have it on a 53.5 degree angle, the seat back. I used a digital level before I took the seats apart, so I sort of know where they need to be. I think what I'm going to do next is apply some clay to the sides of the seats and then screw those bolts in, and that will mark where the holes really need to go. And then I'll drill some holes in the seat so I have my mounting points. And then I'm going to finish the sides of the seats, these sides, and then I'll work on putting the steel inserts and fiberglassing up the bottom of the seat. Okay, so that's sort of the game plan. It's a little ad hoc here. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the process I'll follow. All right, well, I did quite a bit of work since the last segue. Decided to make the brackets out of aluminum at this point, instead of using the wood brackets to locate where the holes go and then try to make the holes on the bracket, the final bracket, the aluminum bracket, line up. I figured that was just not the best approach, so I made the brackets, and we'll use the actual brackets to locate the holes. Also, you'll notice I filled in this area with fiberglass. I used, something called short strand fiberglass resin mixture, and I filled that in with a plastic spatula, and then used just a 6-inch orbital sander and sanded it down and made it smooth. I mean, you could really see the shape of the seats now. So I think they look good. The next step now, we're going to drill the holes in the seats, and I'll make sure they're all sort of squared up, and then we'll build out the sides of the seats. Okay, so stay tuned. Okay, well, we drilled the holes. I'm happy to report that I got them in the right place. You know, everything is curved here, so, you know, it's hard to square up. I don't have a laser level, but I did the best I could, and I think I'm in pretty good shape. Basically, the width is perfect. It's 16 3/4, which gives me enough room to tilt it a little bit to get it to the right angle to match the pedals in the steering column. So we are looking good. I'm very happy with this. So let's see, the next step is I'm going to use a little modeling clay and build up the sides and just take a look at the shape. I want to create, you know, an area that's easily buildable and also sandable. The other thing is, yeah, I had these steel inserts. So these came from McMaster-Carr, a company called Rotolock. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this exact one, but I did do a little testing. I embedded one of these threaded inserts into this glob of fiberglass. Then I basically, what I do is I use a nylon screw. I put it in here, and then I surround it with fiberglass. The fiberglass doesn't stick to the nylon screw. Then I can unscrew it. I'll use a tap, and then I actually torqued a bolt to 22 foot-pounds, and you know, this thing held beautifully. So the idea is, you know, I'll have this facing the outside so that it presses up against about a 1/4 inch worth of fiberglass, and it should provide enough strength and not loosen up. Okay, but anyway, that's sort of the game plan. We're coming to the home stretch here. All right, well, I had a chance to, I guess, start to model out how I'm going to attach these brackets to the seats, right? Those screws were really there just to get them in the right place. So what I did was I got some modeling clay, and this is the kind of clay that it just doesn't dry, so you can continue to shape it. And I came up with a design that I think more than likely I'll go with. This was just to get a sense for what it's all going to look like. And I would say, even with the modeling clay and tape, I mean in place, that looks pretty darn good. It seems pretty rock solid, so I think I'll get a nice firm mounting location when I turn this into fiberglass and resin with the steel inserts. So anyway, like I said, it's a little bit of an ad hoc approach. I think what I'm going to do now is just refine the clay design. Then I really have to take the clay off and redo it. This was just sort of to get a sense for what it would look like, and I have to get those brackets exactly equidistant from the front to the back, so the screw holes are parallel and in line. I didn't want it to sort of be like the back tends to be a little thinner than the front. I didn't want to have like duck feet on it. But anyway, stay tuned. I'm not 100% sure what the next segue is, but we'll figure it out. Okay, well, here's a little work in process. So I took the initial design and refined it a little bit, and this is really what I came up with. So this will be the final design for the molds to add the feet onto the bracket. Let me zoom in here a little bit. So you can see the clay's still a little rough here, and I never really modeled with clay before. I'll try to. And basically what I do to smooth this out, I use this little rake, and I rake the clay, and then I add I add a little dab of mineral spirits, like this here. And I just take my finger and it smooths out the ridges. So that rake sort of levels out the clay, and then the mineral spirits and my finger sort of smooths it out so you can see how it's getting smooth. So I'll do this, 4, 5, 6 times, and then we'll take a look at it and we'll see that the design comes out nice and smooth, so we can take a mold of this in fiberglass. Okay? At this point, I think we are ready to go to the next step. So this is the final mock-up in clay of the bracket mounting points. Not too bad for my first modeling job. Here we go. I mean, all pretty smooth. Should make a nice mold. Let's see, the next step is going to be taking the brackets off and making a fiberglass mold of these mounting points on both seats. Okay, well, we're at the point where we're going to fiberglass up the outside of these bracket mounting points. So the idea here is to surround this area with fiberglass, like 3 layers, and just make a mold of this, and eventually we'll hot glue this on, then fill the inside up with fiberglass. So I took the side brackets off. You can see my sculpting work. No Michelangelo, but doesn't look too bad. I got the fiberglass, just sort of little strips all cut up. We'll apply this and then we'll take a look. Okay, well, let's see. I mixed up 4 ounces of resin. That was enough for two of these molds. So I think they came out good. The trick is really to lay down a bunch of resin on the clay, so the first layer of fiberglass sticks to it, so you don't get any air pockets. So it'll be a pretty smooth mold. The clay doesn't stick to the fiberglass. I got the whole seat covered in packing tape, so these parts should just lift off when I take the packing tape off. But anyway, we'll let this dry and then we'll trim up the molds. We'll see what they look like. All right, well, I'm happy to report these molds came out great. I got like one low spot right there on this one. And I got a low spot right there on this one, but other than that, they're really perfect. Very happy with these. I'll clean the edges up, and then we're going to make these for the rest of the other side and then the other seat, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, well, here's the next step. On the seat modification, I basically are using these clamps and extra pieces of aluminum to square up the brackets against the seat. So before I fiberglass these screws in, I want to actually build up the fiberglass to make sure the screws go in a square way. So like, for example, here, there's a lot of room for these screws to sort of wobble around because they're in on such an angle. So I'm just going to cover these with some fiberglass and resin, and then when I take this off and put the screws in, rethread the screws, they should go in nice and straight. Then we can glue up the side mounting points. All right, well, we fiberglassed this area in, and this did the job. I sort of racked my brain as far as how to get these screws to really be I guess set in the seat firmly, so when I fiberglass it up, they line up with the holes in the brackets, and I think this did the job. What I'll probably do is put a little more fiberglass in here, and then I'll get the 60 grit sander and just take off the sort of the waxy coating that gets created when the polyester resin cures, and then we'll be ready to go. And here are the molds. So I have a little Bondo on these. I'll sand these down, but I've cleaned these up. Sort of look like pork rinds, actually. Anyway, this is sort of the idea now at this point. So, you know, we use some hot glue and hot glue this in place, and then I'll fill that whole area up with fiberglass. You know, some fiberglass sheet, some chopped up fiberglass, etc. So we're getting to the home stage here. You know, I just really didn't know how to approach this and had to take some time to think it through, but this is a huge step because these are in there straight up and down. You know, now I can just hot glue this and fill this in with fiberglass, and if these molds pop off cleanly, then yeah, I'm pretty much done. Okay, so we're getting there. Okay, here's a little work in process. You can see I started fiberglassing in. All I did was fiberglass around the edges, and basically what I did was I mixed up some resin with a product called Cabasil, which is a thickening agent. So what I want to avoid is the regular resin. You know, I'm going to pour that in here, and I don't want it leaking into the crevice here. So the Cabasil thickens it up. I added a little chopped up fiberglass to it and matted it in there. And what I'll do is I'm going to apply a few sheets of fiberglass, and then the rest of the resin will be just sort of mixed up resin and chopped up fiberglass. Okay, well, I laid down 3 layers of fiberglass in there. You know, you can see where the screw's going to go, the hole in the center. So now I'm going to fill up the area with the chopped up resin or chopped up fiberglass and resin, and then once I get it high enough, then I'll put the screw in with the steel insert, and then I'll fill it up with the fiberglass, chopped fiberglass resin mixture. All right, well, I filled that up and put the steel insert in. Got to find a better way to put that steel insert in. When I undid the nylon screw, it grabbed onto all the fiberglass and started twisting it around. So sort of a bit of a mess to get that back in. But anyway, we're going to let this cure. Probably let it cure overnight, and we'll pop it off tomorrow. All right, so stay tuned. All right, well, that didn't go as planned. I tried to back the screw out, and every time these screws backed out like no problem, and this time the screw snapped off. So I'm gonna have to just gonna have to grind that piece of plastic out or push it out. I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna get the mold off, and then we'll do the next step. We'll see what happens. Okay, well, I popped the mold off, and you know, this is just the mold release. And let me tell you, out of 10, this is a 10. This is a 10 out of 10. I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll take another look at it. You know, it's nice and black. I mean, this is where I put the Cabasil just to fill these gaps in. Which, you know, it didn't leak here, but it wound up leaking a little bit around the edges. But it wasn't easy to get off, but the mold is actually intact, and I certainly could use it again, so that's sort of nice. I just got to find a way to drill this out. That's sort of bugging me, but at least in concept this works, and I sort of see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel here. This is cool. Okay, well, a little more work in process. Let's see, I cleaned up the rear bracket mount point, and you know, as you can see, I'm very happy with that. I also was able to get this out. I simply took a vice grip and gave it a little more pressure right at the base. It came free. Here's a look at the at the steel insert in place. I filled this up with a bunch of fiberglass mixture. I'm going to coat this up, and these will be the first two, and assuming this one goes well, I'll just finish them all up and then we'll take a look. All right, so here's the last work in process. I got the mold off the front piece there. The screw came out without a problem. I actually put a little wax on it, so that helped. That's another best practice, but all in all, I mean, it looks like a bit of a mess, but this thing will clean up really easy. You know, ultimately, I'll sand these down, I'll prime them, and I'll probably paint the back and upholster the front and the side. But I'm really happy with this. These came out great. These brackets will fit perfectly. I mean, plenty of surface area to make them sturdy. And the holes line up absolutely perfectly. You know, just totally plumb. So anyway, the next segue will show both seats assembled, and then we'll show them in the car and we'll call it a wrap. All right, well, I figure I'll squeeze in one more work in process. I didn't cover this in the prior videos. So anyway, this is the driver's seat now, and I'm doing two at a time. So basically, in order to get the mold off, you sort of glob this fiberglass all over the place. And then what I do is I take a sander and just expose the ridge of the mold, and now I can get it to pop off. Also, these crevices, I'll just fill that in with a little fiberglass resin and some finely chopped up fiberglass. And then I'll have to get these totally square so the feet are flat on the ground. The other thing here is some of these molds I sort of over trimmed, so I just built up the area with some modeling clay, and this worked really good, so I can get the full height here. Okay, so anyway, the next video will show the completed seats, and we'll call it a wrap. Okay, well, I'm all done fiberglassing the mounting points for the brackets, and I'm happy to report this came out really well. Here's the passenger seat. Got this on the work table. You know, I mean, this whole seat still needs to be finished, but that's just a matter of sanding, you know, adding a little Bondo or fiberglass filler here and there, cutting out the seatbelt holes. Whoa, almost took a fall there. This one's upside down. This is the driver's side seat. And this came out to be the mounting point 16.5 inches side to side. You can see they're not 100% level. So I'm just gonna sand these down a little bit and make them perfect. You can see they're, you know, it's maybe 1/8 of an inch between that and the floor. And the floor is curved. I'm probably going to wind up flattening this out to keep that seat as low as possible. Here are the mounting points from this vantage point. I mean, once this thing is primed and painted, I mean, in my opinion, they'll look factory. They'll look like they were meant to be there. I sort of like the shape I came up with. All right, we'll take a look, final segue. We'll take a look at these seats in the car. Final segue of this video. And let's see, a couple comments here, a couple closing comments. You know, you can see the seats are nice, you know, they're in a nice upright position. Even though I'm 6'2", I'll fit in the car with the seats fairly upright. Now, if I had to wear a helmet, I'd have to recline these seats quite a bit. You can see the holes for the side impact bar, and I got a good 1.5 inches. This seat actually could go over even more if I wanted to. In the beginning, the original stock brackets overlap those holes, so I got plenty of room. I may shift this seat over towards the passenger side a little more and make the console a little wider on the passenger side. And you know, the driver door I mean, the driver's seat is 1.5 inches wider, but you can see, look at that, tucks right in between the side impact bar. That piece of cardboard there is at a 1.5 degree angle to angle the seat and match it up with the steering column and the pedals. Got some room. I'm actually going to trim this down a little bit, but we got some room between the side impact bar and the seat. I mean, all in all, insane amount of hours put in, but you know what, I think it was worth it because, you know, when I have these seats upholstered, they're going to look really good. They'll match the car. You know, replacing these with another brand of seat is not inexpensive, and you know, this was you know, probably $75 for the metal for the brackets, and maybe $100 in fiberglass, and just a lot of sweat equity, as we say. So let's see, one closing comment. I want to give a huge shout out again to Alfonso from the YouTube channel East Coast Gullwings. He is a master with fiberglass in building scratch building a Gullwing Mercedes, and he gave me a lot of good ideas to do this project. So thanks again, Alfonso. Thank you everybody for following along. The next video should be up shortly. I won't take such a long break, and take care.